I think the region clearly will be concerned by that development in terms of anxiety about reactions, about how Iran will respond to that decision if should President Trump take it, and the complications that will create potentially in relation to the Gulf, but also the broader Middle East. So I think the markets are well aware of those issues. The oil price is probably the most direct route by which the markets will respond. So if there is a reaction in the oil price, it will be through that route that you'll see the impact spread into other areas as well, and maybe other sectors.
Tim, want to elaborate on that, because essentially what we're seeing over the last 24 hours here in Beirut, we've seen these elections, we've seen weaker than expected turnout, we see an economy that's in serious trouble. And the question, of course, going forward is, when you have Hezbollah gaining seats, and obviously Hezbollah being backed by Iran, that means the reach of Tehran is growing in the region. How worried should investors be?
I think in terms of that part of the Middle East, certainly that spread is developing. The impression is gaining ground that there is more involvement in other parts of the Middle East. So the political risk certainly remains significant for countries like Lebanon and Syria and neighbouring countries of those as well. I think as far as the Gulf is concerned, I think it's more through the financial risk, the political, the oil pressure risk, and the implications that will have in terms of activities in relation to perhaps also in relation to Yemen.
And Tim, as we try to figure out the impact on oil as a result of any potentially renewed sanctions coming from the U.S., a lot of Asian countries are big importers of Iranian crude, in fact. So what do you think ultimately happens here? Are we going to see the likes of China immediately get on board and comply with the sanctions?
It doesn't look that way. I think, at the moment it looks as doubtful as to whether even some of the Europeans are going to go with the United States if that decision is taken. So I think there's a lot of room for the kind of alliance or coalition that agreed the agreement in the first place to splinter and see different reactions depending on where you are and which part of the world you're sitting in. So I don't think it'll be a straightforward case that America leads on this issue. I think you will see more fragmentation in terms of responses and reactions once the decision is taken.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.